Hello and welcome to the Poetry of Rock. I'm your host, Jean-Baptiste Jean-Paul Jean-Marie. Today we'll be describing one of the best poems written in the Western Hemisphere, We're Not Going to Take It, by Dee Snider of Twisted Sister, 1984. The important lyrics here are, we've got the right to choose and there ain't no way we'll lose it. This is our life, this is our song. We'll fight the powers that be. Just don't pick our destiny, 'cause you don't know us, you don't belong. Dee Snider had completed a fellowship at Amherst University. He was pursuing studies in history and ancient letters. He had stumbled upon a famous speech known as the Gettysburg Address, and it stuck in his mind, and he wanted to make a song to express his feelings about it. And you may recall the great trouble Abraham Lincoln had in leading up to the Gettysburg Address. Of course, it was the year 1863 during the Civil War. And there was this sort of idea, should he make an appeal to the Constitution as the founding document of the land, or should he appeal to the Declaration as the founding document of the land? And each way had its pros and cons. For example, the Declaration had a declaration of equality for all humans, whereas the Constitution, adopted later, was really a binding contract of all the states. So on the one hand, the Constitution, which said nothing about slavery, was in fact a contract between the states, but the Declaration itself, which was a declaration of equality, was not in fact ratified by the states. So Lincoln was very troubled by this. But in his speech in the Gettysburg Address, when he says 7 years ago, he of course is referring back to the date of the Declaration of Independence. Therefore, for Lincoln, the statement that the Declaration was the founding document gave him the basis, the credibility by which to eradicate later slavery on the basis of equality. And this is interesting again because the Union was falling apart, and the Union, of course, came about from the Constitution. Anyway, Dee Snider, he was very intrigued by this. He studied it constantly. He and his friends, they would stay up all night debating different classical theories of politics, Hobbes, Locke, all the great ones. And Dee Snider, eventually he sided with Lincoln, and that's what he's saying here. He's saying that the Declaration of Freedom is the most important thing, more important than the bylaws and the Articles of Incorporation to come later. He refers to destiny. In fact, there are interesting lines here that are sort of mocking King George, if you will. He says, "You're condescending, your gall is never ending. We don't want anything, not a thing from you. You're so boring." So this ties into the idea of Lincoln establishing the Declaration as the founding document of this country, much like the framers and founders did. They were rejecting an old way of doing it. So this is really a song of freedom, a song of liberty. And in fact, the title of the band, Twisted Sister, you recall during the Civil War, brother against brother, one brother for the north, one brother for the south, stabbing each other with a bayonet, blood squirting everywhere. Why do you think Dee Snider called his band Twisted Sister? It is no doubt a play on this idea of sister versus sister, twisted together like a pretzel. You cannot undo one without the other. That is all for tonight. Thank you for your attention.